Welcome back, the rare and valuable coins. Today, we're diving deep into the world of United States Washington quarter coins. But not just any dollars, we're talking about the ones that sold for thousands of dollars at auction. So let's get started. First up, the 1982 Washington quarter with D mint mark. In dirty condition with a black color shade. We're going to take a close look at its design, how its condition affects its value, and what it's worth in today's market. If you've got one of these in your collection or are curious about how coins in rough condition fare, keep watching. Here it is, the 1982 Washington quarter with D mint mark. As you can see, this coin has a distinctive black color shade, likely due to prolonged exposure to dirt, grime, or perhaps environmental factors that have caused it to discolor over the years. This shade of black, while uncommon, is something that collectors may encounter when dealing with coins that have spent time in circulation. Now, the D Mint mark signifies that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the key facilities where U.S. coins are produced. The Washington Quarter series, which began in 1932, is a staple in American coinage, and the 1982 release continues the tradition of honoring the first president of the United States in George Washington. Now, let's break down the design. On the obverse, the front, of the coin, you'll find the iconic portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan. Washington is shown facing left, with his classic features and his profile looking very detailed. The Liberty inscription is across the top, with "In God We Trust" to the right. Below Washington, you'll see the year 1982, marking when this particular quarter was struck. The black coloration you see here is likely due to environmental damage, whether it's exposure to chemicals, dirt, or prolonged contact with moisture. Over time, coins like this can take on various tones due to the substances they come into contact with. This isn't an intentional feature like toning, which can happen naturally in certain conditions, but rather the result of the coin's age and time spent in circulation. As a result, this coin isn't exactly in mint condition. Instead, it's classified as being in dirty condition. The black color and the grime covering the coin will affect its appeal to collectors. Coins that are in dirty condition or have significant discoloration don't usually fetch high premiums, but they can still hold some value depending on the overall market and collector interest in specific years and mint marks. Since this coin has been well used, its value isn't likely to match that of a well-preserved mint state coin, but it does still have some worth above its face value of. Based on its condition, dirty, with the black color shade, the 1982 D Washington quarter is generally worth around $400 in today's market. While this may seem low, it's important to note that a coin's value can vary depending on factors such as market demand and how many collectors are interested in acquiring a quarter from this specific year and mint mark. Coins that are in worse condition, like those with heavy tarnishing or damage, usually don't see as much attention from serious collectors. However, this doesn't mean the coin is worthless. It's just worth a bit less due to the condition. If this coin was in better condition, say in extra fine or uncirculated condition, it could easily fetch a premium. But as it stands, the dirty condition with the black color shade reduces its overall appeal. Still, for collectors of the Washington Quarter series, or for those interested in circulated coins with visible wear and age, this quarter still has some historical and intrinsic value. Next up, the 1980 Washington quarter with D mint mark in very fine condition. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this coin holds a special place in the world of numismatics. So, if you've come across one of these in your collection, or if you're curious about how it stacks up in today's market, keep watching as we break down its value, design, and historical significance. Here it is, the 1980 Washington quarter with the D mint mark. As you can see, this coin is in very fine condition, which means it has some wear, but the design elements are still clear and well-defined. The overall look of the coin still showcases the features that collectors love about the Washington Quarter series. Now, you might be wondering, what does it mean for a coin to be in very fine condition? Coins in very fine condition typically show light wear, but the main details, including the image of George Washington and the design on the reverse, remain clearly visible. You won't see a lot of major scratches or dents, and the edges will still have some sharpness to them. While not as perfect as an uncirculated coin, a very fine quarter is still in pretty good shape. Let's take a look at the design of the 1980 Washington quarter. On the obverse, the front, we've got the well-known portrait of George Washington. This design was created by John Flanagan and has been used on the Washington quarters since 1932. It shows Washington facing left, with liberty across the top and "In God We Trust" to the right. You'll also find the 1980 year of minting directly below Washington's portrait. In terms of value, coins in very fine condition are typically worth more than those in good or fine condition, but not as much as those in extra fine or uncirculated condition. The 1980 Washington quarter is a regular strike coin, meaning it was made for general circulation, not for collectors or special editions. That being said, it still holds some value due to its age and its status as part of a well-loved series. In very fine condition, the 1980D Washington quarter is generally worth around $50 in today's market, depending on factors such as demand and current trends in the numismatic community. This value is above its face value of as most coins in very fine condition carry a premium due to their age and the fact that they've been preserved better than those in lower grades. It's important to note that the value of this coin can fluctuate depending on the collector market. If there is a rise in demand for Washington quarters from certain years or mints, the 1980D could see a bump in price. Additionally, key factors like the mintage numbers and how well the coin has been stored over time will also influence its value. In terms of the mintage of the 1980 Washington quarter, the D mint mark indicates that it was produced at the Denver Mint. A total of 360 million of these quarters were struck in 1980, making it a relatively common year and mint mark. Coins that have higher mintage numbers like this one don't usually command sky-high values unless they have unique errors or other exceptional qualities. So, where should you go to buy or sell a coin like this? Well, if you have a 1980D Washington quarter in very fine condition and you're looking to sell it, your best bet is to take it to a local coin shop, or you can also look for reputable online dealers or auction sites. Keep in mind that the condition of the coin is key when it comes to pricing. So if you're looking to sell or buy, always get an appraisal to ensure you're getting the best price for your coin. Next up, the 1965 Washington quarter dollar without a mint mark. And we're talking about one in fine condition, so if you have one of these coins lying around, keep watching to find out how much it's worth in today's market. Let's start with a little history. The year 1965 was a pivotal year for U.S. coinage. The U.S. Mint made a significant change to the composition of its coins that year due to the rising price of silver and a national coin shortage. In 1965, the U.S. government passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from the quarter, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. This was the beginning of the clad coinage era, a shift from the traditional silver content that defined many U.S. coins up until then. And interestingly, in 1965, the Mint temporarily stopped using mint marks on coins, so this year's Washington quarter doesn't have one. That's right, if you find a 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark, it was struck at one of the two major mints, either Philadelphia or Denver, but you won't know which one just by looking at the coin. Now, let's talk about the design of the coin. The 1965 Washington quarter kept the same design introduced back in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. On the obverse, you'll find the famous bust of George Washington facing left, with the inscription "Liberty" at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the year 1965 at the bottom. And on the reverse, you'll see the American bald eagle in flight, holding a bundle of arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other. The eagle is perched above the words "United States of America," with a pluribus unum above it and quarter dollar below. Unlike the earlier quarters made with silver, this coin has a copper-nickel-clad composition. The core of the coin is copper, surrounded by a copper-nickel alloy. This gives the 1965 quarter a distinct appearance and feel compared to previous silver quarters. In terms of mintage, the 1965 Washington quarter was produced in enormous quantities. The total mintage that year was over 1.8 billion coins. This makes it one of the most common quarters ever produced by the U.S. Mint. Since there is no mint mark on these coins, They were struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The only way to tell the difference is through specific varieties or errors, but generally speaking, Philadelphia struck the bulk of them. As for the composition, the 1965 quarter is made up of 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a total weight of 5.67 grams and a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. Now, let's talk about condition. The coin we're discussing today is in fine condition. In fine condition, you'll typically see significant wear on the high points of the coin. On this quarter, that means the details of Washington's hair and face will be visible but worn down, and some of the finer details of the eagle on the reverse may also be less defined. That's right, while these coins are historical, they're still relatively common in circulation. The lack of silver content and the large mintage keep the value low compared to other coins that were struck before or after 1965. However, the condition and any potential rarities like error coins can certainly affect the price. For instance, 1,965 quarters with error varieties, such as double dies or clipped planchets, can be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on their rarity and condition. While the 1965 Washington quarter is not particularly rare in fine condition, collectors still value it for its historical importance and unique place in coinage history. Next up. Today, we're looking at a 1979 Washington quarter with D mint mark. But there's a twist, it's in damaged condition. You might have one of these quarters lying around in your collection, or maybe you found one in your pocket change. But what's it worth? Stick around to find out. Before we get into the value, let's take a quick trip back to 1979. The Washington Quarter series had been around for decades, first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. Fast forward to 1979, and the quarter was still part of the bicentennial design, with George Washington's bust on the front and a bold eagle on the reverse. In 1979, the United States was in a period of economic adjustment, recovering from the recession of the mid-70s and facing inflation concerns. Coinage production was still in full swing, and by this time the quarter had shifted from silver to copper nickel-clad coins. This allowed the mint to produce more quarters at a lower cost compared to their silver counterparts. The 1979 Washington quarter follows the same design introduced in 1932. On the obverse, front, you've got George Washington facing left, with the word Liberty above him, and in God we trust to the left. Below Washington, you'll see the year 1979 right next to the mint mark D, signifying that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Turning it over, the reverse features an eagle in flight, clutching arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other, with United States of America and a pluribus unum encircling the eagle. The inscription quarter dollar appears below the eagle. Now, when it comes to the mintage of the 1979 Washington quarter, the total production was around 850 million coins, making it a fairly common coin. A large portion of these were struck at the Denver Mint, so if you have a 1979 D quarter, you're not alone. As for the composition, the 1979 quarter is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it the distinctive metallic feel of a modern U.S. quarter. It weighs in at 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. Now, let's talk about the condition of this coin. Damage condition. When a coin is in damaged condition, it's no longer in its original pristine form. This could include scratches, dents, bent edges, discoloration, or other types of wear caused by handling, exposure, or even environmental factors like being buried for years. Damage to a coin can significantly reduce its value. The 1979 D Washington quarter in this condition likely has issues like surface abrasions, tarnishing, or perhaps even some deep scratches on the face of Washington or the eagle. Coins like this have lost much of their original detail, making them less attractive to collectors seeking high-quality examples. In this kind of condition, it's important to remember that the value isn't just tied to its historical or collectible significance. It also depends on how much damage the coin has sustained. And generally, damage can make a coin less desirable in the collector market. Unfortunately, due to the damage, the value of this coin is significantly lower than if it were in good or uncirculated condition. A 1979D Washington quarter in damaged condition typically has a value of around $65,000. While this is much less than a coin in better condition, it's still worth more than face value, so it's not completely worthless. It's also important to note that damaged coins often don't hold the same collectible value as those in better condition. That being said, certain collectors might still show interest in a coin with historical significance, even in poor condition. Coins in good to very fine condition are worth anywhere from $600, and if you happen to find a 1979 D quarter in mint or uncirculated condition, its value could go up to $700, or even more, depending on the market demand and quality. Even though damaged coins might not bring in top dollar, the 1979 Washington quarter still has its appeal for collectors. Many collectors are particularly interested in assembling complete sets of quarters from specific years, including 1979. So, while this coin may not be a high-value item in damaged condition, it can still hold some historical interest. Next up, the 1967 Washington quarter dollar with no mint mark. If you're wondering what it's worth today in today's market, stay tuned as we break it down. Before we talk about value, let's rewind a bit and look at the 1967 Washington quarter and its historical context. By 1967, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for over 30 years, introduced in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. The coin had a long history of being produced in silver, but starting in 1965, the U.S. Mint switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition for most circulation coins due to rising silver prices. The 1967 quarter, which you're looking at, is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, and was produced primarily for general circulation. In 1967, the U.S. was dealing with a time of social and political upheaval, with the civil rights movement gaining momentum, the Vietnam War intensifying, and the country experiencing a cultural shift. But what does all that have to do with a quarter? Well, the 1967 Washington quarter reflects the mid-60s period when the U.S. Mint was focused on transitioning the nation's coinage away from silver and adjusting to the economic environment. One thing to note here, this quarter, like other coins minted after 1964, does not have the silver content that earlier Washington quarters had, but the design is still a staple of American coinage and remains largely unchanged even today. Now, let's talk about the mintage numbers and the composition of this coin. In 1967, the U.S. Mint produced over 1 billion Washington quarters, making the 1967 quarter fairly common in circulation. However, this particular quarter is from the Philadelphia Mint, which did not include a mint mark on coins produced there at the time. Therefore, this coin will show no mint mark, unlike those from the Denver Mint or San Francisco Mint, which would have had a D or S mint mark, respectively. As I mentioned earlier, this coin is made from 75% copper and 25% nickel, so it has a bit of a metallic sheen to it and doesn't have the same weight or value as its earlier silver counterparts. It weighs about 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. In the coin grading scale, fine condition refers to a coin that shows noticeable wear but still retains much of the design detail. For a quarter, this would mean that the bust of George Washington and the eagle on the reverse are still relatively defined, though there might be some surface scratches, wear on the high points, and slight fading of the lettering. It's definitely not in pristine condition, but it's far from being heavily worn or damaged. Due to the relatively high mintage and the fact that this coin isn't considered rare, a 1,967 Washington quarter in fine condition typically has a market value of about $100. This is assuming there's no unique feature or rare error associated with the coin. Now, if you happen to have a 1967 Washington quarter that's in better condition, say in very fine or uncirculated condition, the value can go up significantly, possibly reaching $150 or more. But because this coin is in fine condition, it won't fetch a premium unless it has something special, like an error or a very low population for that year. Even though the 1967 Washington quarter may not be worth a fortune in fine condition, it's still a coin of interest for collectors. It's a part of a series that has been consistently produced for decades, and many collectors enjoy collecting Washington quarters from various years to complete their sets. For example, if you're working on assembling a set of quarters from the 1960s, this coin would be a great addition. Additionally, if you can find one with an interesting variety, error, or unique feature, it could add some value. Sometimes coin collectors and investors look for key dates, mint marks, and condition levels to drive up the price. So, there you have it. If you have a 1967 Washington quarter without mint mark and fine condition, its current market value is around $200. While it may not be a high-value coin, it's still a significant piece of U.S. history and a nice addition to any collection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can stay updated on all our future videos. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting!